It is December, which means everybody and their moms are telling you that it is time to plan for 2026, including me on this podcast. All right, so let's talk about how to plan for 2026 without getting super overwhelmed and creating a plan that's actually realistic and is not going to send you down a rabbit hole. So let's dive in. So one of the things that I've been thinking about in terms of this episode and how to plan for 2026 and the training I'm doing inside Copy Classroom for planning for 2026 is this idea of like, how flexible should your yearly planning be? Because I last year led a training on yearly planning, and I found that throughout the year, my yearly plan kind of just disappeared. By the time it was summer, I have no idea what I was doing in that yearly plan. My plan was completely different than what I had planned the previous December. And that's okay, because everything in business changes so quickly. And one of the great things about being a small business owner is that you can adapt and you can change and you can be really nimble. And so it's normal that if you are a small business or a solo business owner, that something that you planned 6 months ago might be totally different by the time you actually get around to it. And so that's something that I've been thinking about, is really like what actually needs to be like concretely planned and what needs to be more goal driven and more flexible, so that like when I actually get to August of next year, maybe I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I have a big picture idea of where I'm headed and how I might achieve some of those goals. So it's tricky, right? I'm a planner, right? I love planning. I could sit down and be like, here's your next 52 emails. But the truth is that it doesn't make sense to plan out your next 52 emails, because by the time that it's email 30 something, you're probably going to want to change those emails, or at least tweak them, or at least refine them. And so what actually makes sense to plan? And I would say the first step in really thinking about this of planning for your next year is really like pause and reflect on your 2025 and really like think about what really worked in 2025, what didn't work, what did I actually enjoy doing, what did I kind of hate doing, what do I want to bring with me into next year, and what do I want to leave behind, and just like sit with it. And yes, you can look at your numbers, you can look at your analytics when it comes to this, but also check in with yourself, like what feels sustainable, what doesn't feel sustainable. Like for me, my biggest shift of this year was pretty much moving solely to this podcast and email marketing for my marketing, and then also collaborations and networking. But for the most part, I got off social media. I simplified a lot. I even wanted to start a blog, and I had to make the executive decision that like, hey, this is not the right time to start a blog, because although I love writing, I'm working on a book, and that's a lot of writing, and I need to be realistic about what I can actually accomplish given, my workday and how long I'm spending at my computer. And so looking at your year, figuring out, hey, I really want to lean more into whatever was working. I really don't want to do this anymore. Getting off social media was huge for me. I spent so long building up my Instagram, building community there, and it was really hard to like shift away from it. It was scary, and I took a dip in my income because I was marketing so much over there, and I had to like kind of recreate my marketing system so that I am still getting new people in my audience and being able to convert them into my offers. It's definitely something that's going to be personal to every business owner, to what works for you, to what doesn't. But there are a few things that everybody can kind of think about as they plan for next year. And so take a second, put on your CEO hat, your big decision-making, long-term planning hat, and think about your actual schedule. And not like I work Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, but really thinking about, are you taking a vacation next year? And if you're not, please plan a vacation. You don't even have to go anywhere. It can be a staycation, but take some time off of work, because that time is so important and you feel so refreshed afterwards, and it just like leads you to do better work. But thinking about time off. So like for me, I know I am taking 2 weeks off in February. I know I'm taking off a week in August. And already knowing that, in December the year before, I can start to plan out the times of year that I'm going to have more time to devote to my business and the times of year where I want to shut down my laptop. And knowing this ahead of time, I can communicate it to my clients. I can really prepare the way that I'm doing work so that I'm not at the last minute right before my vacation trying to finish off a lot of projects. Like, knowing ahead of time allows me a lot more flexibility so that I can take that time off. I don't have to feel bad about it. And my clients are still happy. And so thinking about that, the other thing to consider, like when you're thinking about your time and your capacity going into next year, is like different seasons. Like for me, summer's always slow because a lot of my clients are with their families. They have kids. Their kids are home for summer. So summer is always slow. And so it doesn't really make sense for me to put the gas pedal on in summer. It would make more sense to make summer like a lighter season for me and then do some more marketing either before the summer starts or after the summer ends when people are more in work mode. And so thinking about too, like, where are the places where you were building momentum in your business, but then how does this line up? Like if you have kids, then maybe summer's not the best time to try to redo your website. Every year in summer, I am like, I'm going to do this really big project. And every year in summer, I am like, I don't want to work on Fridays. I'm taking a half day on Thursday, and I never work on that big project until it's like August, September. And I'm like, oh no, I said I was going to do this, and now I have to work on this really big project. So really thinking about that. And I think the other thing to consider when you're looking at your like overall calendar is like, if your goal is like, I want to have 3 launches for my offer at these times of year, making sure that you give yourself breathing room because life happens, and rolling like right from one thing into another thing, it can be really, really tricky because just like having 1 week where you're sick and you didn't get time to create your content, you didn't get time to do the things that you want to do, all of a sudden you feel like you're behind. And so building in that flexibility into your calendar ahead of time, it really just helps you shift your mindset. So you're not like feeling guilty. You're not feeling behind. You're just like, hey, I know that life happens and I planned for this. And so I feel a lot better because, hey, I actually have 3 weeks where I can kind of play around and do whatever I want, or I can keep pushing the offer that I was trying to push or moving on to something else because, hey, maybe that wasn't hitting like you thought it was. And so I think too, like, one of the dangers of like planning ahead too much is as you move through your year, you're getting more information. You're getting information about your audience, your clients, what's working, what they need. And also like in this timeline, like the economy is a little bit shaky to say the least. The market there's a trust gap. People are not as openly trusting as they once were. And so it's taking longer for people to buy. And so all of these things being considered, you don't really know how things are going to play out. And so giving yourself some flexibility too, to like, hey, if I'm launching a campaign in March and then I want to do it again in August, taking the time to really say like, okay, here's what worked in March. Here's what didn't work in March. And then using that information to inform your next campaign, what's going to happen next. Doesn't mean you have to create a whole new launch, but just like thinking about how can you tweak, how can you refine? It's a little bit easier. You don't have to start from scratch, but you're also like not doing all of the work ahead of time and then having to change everything, right? Like I was always the kid who would like do my work right away. And then I would, get to class and the professor would be like, oh, actually, you don't have to read this chapter anymore. I changed my mind. People complained that it was too much work. And I was like, well, fuck, I already did it. So that was me. And so I get falling into this trap of like, I want to really plan out everything, but how can you plan it out in a way that still gives you flexibility so that you aren't redoing work over and over and over again? So when you're thinking about your actual plan, what are you actually writing down in your calendar? 1, you're writing down what is the time that you are taking off. And 2, you are thinking about your marketing plan, right? You're thinking about your capacity. You're thinking about the pieces that you need. And so instead of thinking about all the places that you need to be or you should be or all the things you should be doing, really thinking about, hey, do I have all of the basic pieces of my marketing? So 1, are you getting in front of new people, right? That is an integral part of marketing. You have to be getting in front of new people. 2, how are you connecting with those people, right? How are you positioning yourself as an expert? And then 3, how are you actually selling your offer, right? So are you running campaigns? Are you just soft selling on your email list? There are tons of different ways to do all of these things, but really thinking about what's going to work for you and how can you plan it in a way that's sustainable. And if you are listening to this right now and you were like, I have no capacity to plan for next year, it's okay. Do it in January. Don't do it in January. Do it in February. For me, one of my goals is to go into 2026 and really lean into like a simple, more lean business. And that's something that I have to keep learning over and over again, because as I move through, time in life, I'm kind of figuring out, actually I'm overcomplicating this and maybe I can make this a little bit easier. And so my goal for next year is, yes, I'm going to have my full year plan. I am going to write down the times that I'm taking off. I am going to think about, hey, what are some marketing goals that I might have? What are the things that I want to promote? But then I'm only really going to go into the nitty gritty for Q1. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to do it again at the end of Q1 so that I can have a plan for Q2. And breaking that down into smaller pieces, I think it's just going to make me feel like, one, it's going to give me more time for reflection throughout the year because so much happens in a year. And so really breaking it down into quarters is super helpful because you can really stop and pause and say, hey, these are the things that were working really well. These are the things that were not. So here's where I want to pivot for the next quarter. And thinking about it like that. And then also like that also gives you more flexibility because maybe something comes up in your real life and you are now being like, hey, actually in Q2, I really wanted to do this launch, but actually I don't have the capacity. So maybe I'm going to switch up my plan for the year. And the whole point of this is like, you don't have to like create this like concrete plan that you follow, step by step by step. You can create like an overview. You can create your goals and then work backwards. Do a month at a time, do a quarter at a time, and make sure it's realistic, right? Make sure that it serves your capacity and it's not what you should do, but instead what's going to feel good, what's going to move the needle. So with that, thank you so much for listening, and until next time. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred listening platform. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe for weekly episodes about how to make money and work with the dreamiest of clients without having to get dressed in the morning. Make sure to check out the show notes down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.